my name is Abby and welcome back to a new video. I'm super excited for this one. I definitely have been procrastinating on it a bit. I started it right before I came back to college. So I started it and then I had to pack everything up, move it all over, and then there was, orientation weekend and first day of classes, and it's just been a hot mess. But luckily, with the little bit of free time I had, I was able to finish the dress and wear it for my first day of school. I got lots of compliments, a lot of people really liked it, and it really helped make me feel good about myself, and I'm really glad that so many people like this dress. A lot of my dresses are more on the shorter sides, unless I make them like a vintage kind of inspired. Then they're on the bit longer side, but I've been more of a long skirt kind of girly. I kind of like the flow and the elegance, and I like how if it's windy, I don't need to be trying to hold it all down. And especially since my campus has a lot of hills and a lot of wind, longer skirts and dresses are much better for walking back and forth. So for today's video, we are going to be making a maxi dress. The design is definitely much more simple and plain, so it's very easy if you're a beginner. I really think it's super cute and fun, and I hope you all like it as much as I do. So without further ado, let's start the video and see how I made this wonderful summer dress. Since the blue fabric was see-through and had holes in the design, I chose this lining fabric that was the closest match of blue that I could find. Starting off with the bodice, I used my sketched out measurements to cut out the pieces. The only chalk I have is blue, so it was not showing up well at all on the fabric, so I just stuck in some pins to use as guidance for when I cut. I cut out 5 pieces total for the lining, and then I cut out another 5 pieces so that the bodice would have 3 layers of fabric, with 2 of them being the lining and 1 being the main fabric. After cutting out all 15 pieces to make the 3 bodices, I pinned them all together and straight stitched them down. Moving on to the straps, since I wanted the straps of my dress to be tied up into a bow, I cut out long strips of the fabric, making sure that I had excess to make the ties. Folding in the raw edges, I folded the strip into fourths so that the raw edges were sandwiched into the fold. Then I sewed down both sides of the strip to make sure that it was secure and would lay flat. Taking my 3 bodice layers, I sandwiched in the straps in between the layers and stitched just the top of the bodices together. Then I was ready to start working on my skirt. Like I did for the bodice, I once again started out with my lining layer and cut out 2 long rectangles. Taking one of the rectangles, I cut it in half to now have 3 rectangles, and then put those 2 smaller pieces on either side of the larger rectangle to create now 1 large rectangle. Once this was done for the lining layer, I repeated these steps for the main fabric skirt. Using my serger, I serged the seam allowances and the bottom edge of both of the rectangles. And then using my hand needle and a running stitch, I hand gathered the top edges of both the main fabric and the lining skirt separately to fit them into the waist of the bodice. Taking my bodice, I put the right sides of the skirt to the right sides of the bodice, leaving the back lining bodice piece out. Since the dress was more bulky than I expected, I took the back layer of the bodice lining and folded the raw edge in, and then just did a quick whip stitch to sew it down. I made sure to only sew the bodice lining to the skirt lining so that the stitching would not be visible on the front of the dress. After folding in the raw edge on the side of the bodice, I sewed up the bottom edge of the skirt pieces separately and then added in the zipper using my zipper foot. I also decided to top stitch down the bodice to give more strength to the straps. At the bottom of the dress, I wanted to have a fun ruffle, so I cut out a bunch of strips of fabric, and since the fabric had lines on it, it was important that all the pieces of the main fabric are going the same way. I cut out 5 strips and then sewed the ends together to make 1 long strip. Going back to my serger, I serged the seam allowance in the top edge of the ruffle where it would connect to the skirt. And then using my trusty hand sewing needle, I hand gathered the entire top edge of the ruffle to connect it to the skirt, which was very time consuming but worth it. After pinning the ruffle to the bottom of the skirt, I carefully sewed the ruffle down, making sure to take my time. Once it was attached, I did a rolled hem at the bottom of the ruffle, also making sure to fold up and sew the bottom edge of the skirt lining, and then the dress was complete.